The views and opinions expressed on the Pier 6 Roundtable are those of the hosts, guests and callers, and do not necessarily reflect those of this station, its management, other hosts or underwriters. Listen at your own risk.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our main event of the evening. A Pier 6 brawl with a 1-hour time limit. And now, here is the undisputed, true voice of pro wrestling in New England, the Pier 6 Wrestling Roundtable.
Wonderful!
You listen to me, you go to the top. Don't listen to me, you're never heard from again.
Ha ha! Delete! Oh, kiss your boots if you can do it! But to be the man, you gotta beat the man!
And what's he gonna do when Hulkamania and the largest arms in the world destroy you?
Using this word jabroni, and it's awesome.
You are tuned to 101.1 FM, WBRU-LP, WFOO-LP, WVVX-LP, Providence. The show is the Pier 6 Wrestling Roundtable, and we're back after a week off. We were told, oh, you can't come in and do the show because it's spring concert weekend or whatever.
Is that what it was?
It was, but I mean, I wasn't going to be here anyway because I was invited to go play music at the implosion of the Brayton Point Power Cooling, the coal cooling towers.
That's what I thought.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I probably watched like 12 different angles of it.
We were
It's so satisfying.
we were at the Kennedy Park in Fall River, which completely overlooks it. It was pretty cool, and it's just early. Man, I was there at like 6:45. Like,
They did it at like 8 o'clock, didn't they?
Yeah. It was like a great overlook of it. So it was kind of a cool experience. I mean, definitely missed out on doing the show, but it was what it was. So if you just tuned in, you don't know the show. Well, where the hell have you been? This is the Pier 6 Roundtable. My name is Matt, a.k.a. the Mad Dog, sitting in the co-host position as usual, the outlaw, the high-class one, the king of all zebras.
All of them?
All of them.
All
Every single stinking one. Even the ones that aren't very good who get their shirts at Foot Locker.
Yeah,
Rich Bass.
especially those.
And we are more than happy to have a guest back in the studio. We've talked about his wrestling company, the Providence Wrestling Party, for quite some time, and we've been teasing that he would be in studio at some point, but here we go. Former student of Oney Lorcan of NXT fame, Sully Banger in studio.
Hello.
And we're happy. We're going to talk more at length with him today about Providence Wrestle Party and what's going on. There's a show coming up tomorrow night, I believe. Yeah. So certainly info to come about that. And so we're going to talk at length about how that company began, how his wrestling career began, etc. If you follow us on social media, Facebook.com/Pier6WR. On Twitter, it's Pier6WR. At Voodoo Basin Sax is my Twitter, and Rich is at Real Rich Bass. And we were just talking as we were coming back. If you follow us in the last 48 hours, I retweeted a Mean Gene Okerlund clip with from the latter days of WCW.
Ew.
And it's pretty tremendous. It's like they just went full on, like he was Attitude Era before there was an Attitude, or it's probably while the Attitude Era was happening on the other channel. But he's
colorful language you don't expect to hear from Mean Gene.
No, he's calling Mike Sanders a prick, and
well, to be fair,
yeah, if the shoe fits. So anyhow, hang on a second. I'm going to put one of Jen's balls in my mouth.
Oh, there you go.
If you're just tuning in, and or if you were tuning in earlier to Jen's dish, she had an oncology dietitian in, and we got all kinds of yummy stuff left behind. Fruit salad and protein balls.
Yeah, those are really good. I found out the hard way, though. Those are not pineapples. Those are mangoes.
They?
I was very disappointed.
Gotcha. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Got.
Thanks, Jen.
That right there is like a pro wrestling swerve.
Yep.
That mango did it for the people. It did it for the Rock. Did it for the Rock.
But really, he did it for Triple H.
Yeah.
Stupid.
So,
I actually forgot about somebody I work with, of all people, like completely not in the wrestling business, is like super huge fan. So it's cool to get to talk with somebody outside of the business about literally everything. Like, this dude is like an encyclopedia. It's fantastic. And he had to remind me that it was like the blow off to all that. It wasn't The Rock, because people were still cheering for him.
Right.
They had to say, well, I did it for The Rock, but I really did it for Triple H. And like,
Triple H.
yeah, Triple H paid him out. It's so stupid. Like, what a terrible audible.
So if you're tuning in, the embargo on spoilers for Avengers Endgame, 2 more days, according to the Monday, according to the Russo brothers. So we will not. Good movie. That's the only spoiler we'll give here, but
I have not caught it yet.
Me neither.
oh, it's so good.
Spoilers don't bug me, but it hasn't been spoiled for me yet.
People have been overall pretty respectful, and I think part of it is because there have been reports of people walking out of the theater and being like, blah, 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 and people waiting in line punching them in the face.
Yeah, it was a guy in Hong Kong that got the piss beat out of him
Yeah.
for giving spoilers to people coming out of the theater.
I mean, like, the weeks leading up to things, when you have them, like the Russo brothers, putting screen caps of Doctor Strange saying, Doctor Strange has witnessed 14 million ways this movie could end, and he didn't tell anybody, be like Doctor Strange. I mean, it's like the ultimate douche move when people have been waiting 22 films, 10 years for something like this.
It's like I said, it takes literally zero effort to just not be a dick. Like, just don't do it. Like, why? What do you gain from, like, just, don't be a dick.
And actually, one of the dicks who did it, who got a few people, was somebody who is involved in promoting shows in northern Massachusetts.
That bastard Joe Moakley from APW posted a GIF on someone's page, making people think that it was going to be a chick with a nice butt. So when you scroll over it, it actually shows like the last scene of the movie and like the climax of everything. Like, I'm not going to say it, but
the wrong climax. You were hoping to see a butt.
Yeah, it got me.
Yeah.
Again.
Oh man, it's terrible.
Mangoes and GIFs getting me.
Yeah, I would have like, hey, I'm booked at your show, right? Just to punch him in his nose. It's ruining the movie, you jerk.
Yep.
Well, anyway, let's get to the show. We could talk about 100 other things, but like Game of Thrones and.
Don't even get me started.
Are you on which side of it? Are you on the pissed off side or the?
Absolutely not.
All right,
fantastic.
I loved it
because I listened.
So good.
I listened to 3 days of Stern complaining and bitching and moaning about the episode was so dark. I couldn't see a damn thing. It was like being.
It made it spookier.
It's a battle at night against undead.
You know what I did? I turned the brightness up on my TV, and it was perfectly
And that's
fine.
what you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to adjust the brightness of your TV for.
If you think about,
Well, we thought our TV was broken, is what happened.
it was really dark.
Oh, it was super dark.
But I mean, logically speaking, if you think about the scene, it's the dead of night.
Yeah.
It's winter, which is darker anyways. They don't have, lights. They have candles and moonlight
torches, yeah.
and fire.
And
so,
flaming effing swords.
Yeah.
Well, I did see a thing that the producers blamed it on HBO for doing something different.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
Oh.
I'm sure they wanted it dark, but I guess it was darker than even the team had wanted. But that could have just been throwing blame because of how
There was a
upset
word that
people are.
I don't think it was ruined for me.
They pulled back on budget, and maybe like there was like less lighting. There's something, but I mean they're spending like tens of millions, $30 million I think for that episode.
Unreal.
But man, it was worth
yeah.
it.
It took them
Good stuff.
55 days to shoot it.
Yeah.
That episode.
Yep. Just that episode.
And I mean we're literally, almost a week out of the episode. So if you haven't watched it, tough luck. We don't have a spoiler-free zone on Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And so now the Arya Stark challenge is the new viral thing going on online. People doing things like holding their keys aloft, dropping the keys, catching them in the bottom of the hand, and unlocking their door. And
Nice.
yeah,
I'm gonna go home and try that.
Yeah, it is. If you look, it's a big hashtag, the hashtag Arya challenge. And I didn't know about this until last night. And some of them are pretty good, and some of them are just
Stupid.
people being really stupid. One chick is like saying she's got the Arya dance, so she's in the club, like just one arm up, like, and then dropping it down and poking with the left hand. And,
Roger that.
Yeah, Roger. So,
So I expected more main characters to die, so that it was kind of nice that
they're saving them so that the Lannisters can come and kill them.
we'll see. I was upset by Jorah. I enjoyed him very much.
He's going to turn up on the DC Universe. They have their Titans show that's about Dick Grayson and him becoming Nightwing. He's coming in. He's actually going to be Bruce Wayne.
Really?
Yeah, in season 2. It's wicked random, but yeah.
Like super old Bruce Wayne?
Like blonde hair, blue-eyed Bruce Wayne.
Blonde-haired, blue-eyed Bruce Wayne, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, legit.
Cool.
I think it's good. He's a good actor. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
He's a good dude too. I saw like a few of his interviews talking about Game of Thrones, and he just seems like a cool, humble dude. So yeah, that sucked to see his character go, but it was time, I think, especially the way it went down. And
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that Braun is still alive, but we'll see what happens in the next.
He's screwed. I think Cersei's gonna do some bad things to him.
And he was one of you're talking about people who seem like cool guys in real life. I mean, when he was at the Rhode Island Comic-Con, like he wasn't doing he was in the high demand area at the time, but he wasn't sitting behind the table. He was coming out for like every time people came up for an autograph. He's coming out, he's hugging people, shaking hands, talking with them, posing for pictures, putting people in like headlocks and stuff.
That's awesome.
I'm like, anytime somebody interacts with fans like that, that's like
nobody's cooler than Rooker though.
No
one will
Michael
ever
Rooker
go.
is the man.
I mean, I feel like I could have gone out for a beer with him. That's how like cool he was. Like,
but I talked about it was now like 4 years ago when I was at San Diego Comic-Con, and we're and Rob Logan and I are walking on the floor, and here comes Michael Rooker just like walking by. We're like, "Hey, Mike, how are you? Hey, guys, how's the enjoying the Comic-Con so far?" And then keeps going. Holy cow, Michael Rooker just walking through. Wasn't shot out of a cannon like he was when he took over that panel, but it was.
I just feel like people who are on that level of fame, like again, you have no reason to be a dick.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yep, especially when you're at like a Comic-Con. These are the people who have given you this life. So you not owe it to. You don't owe anybody anything, but you kind of do in a way. Like, just take a picture and smile and be nice.
That's in San Diego. There were a lot of people who just kind of kept on their own, but then there was, there were the celebrities who had no problem being right on the floor, interacting, taking pictures, and I always had a lot of respect for those people because it's just like they recognize that they wouldn't have the life they do without it.
Yep.
One last thing before we get into the meat of the show. It's May the 4th, which people usually, it's Star Wars Day, but this week Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca, passed away.
Yeah.
So it was a bummer. It's just another one of the, Carrie Fisher passed away earlier, in the last year, and now him. It's like, it's sad. I mean, he's no longer playing Chewbacca. They have this giant Swedish dude playing him, Jonas, whatever it is. But yeah, that was a bummer to see happen this week. So rest in peace, Chewie.
Yep.
So let's go on to a positive note. Pro wrestling, at least this end of pro wrestling. You look at some of the stuff that goes on in the world, and some of it's kind of crazy. But we're going to bring it down to Little Rhode Island and start off with talking to Sully Banger a little bit about, as he said, Providence Wrestle Party. But before we get to that, before you got into the wrestling business, you were very likely a fan. So what initially made you a fan? Like, what era of wrestling was it? What was it about wrestling that caught your attention and got you where you were watching and wanted to, like, eventually get involved?
I think that it was different for me. I obviously grew up during the Attitude Era, and then also the Ruthless Aggression Era. I was, hitting puberty around the 2000s when all those things were on TV. It had changed. I saw it in passing when it was the Attitude Era, and like obviously the big ones. The Rock's cool. Stone's Cold's still cool, but I wasn't watching as a fan at that point. And then I lived in Spain when I was younger. My dad was military. He's actually listening right now. But
hello, Mr. Banger.
down in
Shout out to
North
Mr.
Carolina.
Banger Classic.
Yeah.
But they would stream SmackDown and Raw. I think I watched more SmackDown than anything, but there was a 6-hour time difference, so I would have to stay up till like 2 a.m. to watch the beginning of SmackDown. So when I was watching it, I just thought it was really cool. I liked watching people get beat up. I loved Finlay, and that was the Finlay that I knew for the longest time. I didn't know about Dave Finlay.
Right. WCW.
Yeah, and even before, like, World of Sport stuff, which is my favorite style of wrestling now, and my favorite stuff to watch is old Finlay matches and him screaming like a cranky old man. So that was it. I didn't know I wanted to be a wrestler. I mean, you make jokes about it when you're younger, like, who wants to be a wrestler with me? But I just thought it was cool. I don't think that I was like, because I didn't do athletic wrestling. I played sports in high school, but I didn't do wrestling. And I didn't do MMA or any sort of martial art or anything. And then I was living in Providence, and there was the opportunity to be a wrestler, and I was like, cool, let's do it.
So in that era, Fit Finley Finley was one of the bigger people kind of stood out to you. Any particular matches that you remember that stood out of his that really caught your eye?
I think my earliest memory of him was trapping Jeff Hardy in the apron.
Love those.
And then elbowing him in the face. I've always wanted to do that, but I always wrestle in low boy rings, so you can't trap anybody in the apron there.
Hey, Bullet, get over here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, the apron trap is a good,
I think
good old school heel move.
they used him like on WCW, like on Saturday night when it was in the smaller studio, and initially they'd use him, and he was Dave Finley, or they would Dave Fit Finley, and the first time he really caught my eye was they had him in Regal work, and just to watch, it was a different level. The way they, first of all, I mean, they'd known each other for years, so everything, they know how tight they can lay things in or whatever. It just had a different look to it. It was like, wow, these guys are like really beating the piss out of each other, and the technicality of it was always like really good. So for that, like, that's how he first caught my eye. That, and he used to come out in those shows with a jacket that was like a takeoff of the Road Warrior jacket.
Yeah, it had the spikes, right?
From Mad Max, one shoulder was one shoulder pad was like a football pad, and it was like a leather jacket. And it was always like, all right, that's pretty cool that he's got a Mad Max jacket that he's wearing to the ring. So you said the word got out in Providence to that you could become a pro wrestler. How did you first hear that? What way did that come across? That information come across you? Was it just something online or?
So I had a couple friends who liked wrestling. They got me into indie. I didn't even know indie wrestling existed at all.
Let's go. Yeah, jump. How did that happen?
As far as 6 years ago, I didn't know that indie wrestling existed. Like, there's these wrestlers, but I never knew a wrestler. I'd never been to an indie show. And then a friend of mine, Steve Pidd, who was a major Beyond fan. He lives in Philly now. He had me over. Him and my friend Rich, they were roommates at the time. They showed me Chikara. They showed me NXT, and that, not that that's indie wrestling, but they were like, oh, Sami Zayn's from here, and they were showing me where everybody was from.
At the beginning stages of NXT, it was very indie.
But they were like, oh, if you want to watch more of that guy, watch this show, watch this promotion, and they had all the DVDs. I think they had every Chikara DVD up to that point. Wow. And I would borrow them, and I would look at the art and the pictures, put them in the DVD player at my house and watch them. And I was just like, wow, this is really cool. And then we went to my first indie show was what was the Chikara promotion when they were on a hiatus? Is it like Wrestling is Art or Wrestling is Fun? They changed it every time.
Wrestling is Art. They had a bunch of them,
That was at the Armory in East Greenwich. Yep. And Oney was on that show as Francis Franco Rourke. And
Frank,
I'd never heard of anybody, and I saw the Batiri for the first time, and they were great. But then seeing Franco Rourke, and people would call him Francis, and he would just scream, "It's Frank!" I was like, oh, I don't even know about wrestling. I don't know who this man is. I don't know that he's going to be the dad to my wrestling career. Yeah. And I was just like, I fell in love with him. I was like, oh man, this guy would beat the crap out of you, but here he is, like doing jokey, funny stuff, and also beating the crap out of somebody while doing it. And then
that's him in a nutshell too. Like,
yeah, that's just how he is. He's very endearing in that way. But then a few months later, I had touched base with Drew Cordero over at Beyond. I don't know what for. I think I had met him at that show briefly, but it wasn't from like a business standpoint. It was like a, hey, how are you? And I think I may have messaged him and been like, hey, if there's ever like a way for me to train, let me know, because I didn't know of any schools at the time. Like the Kingdom wasn't around. I didn't know about Top Rope.
Right.
I went into this completely blind. I was not like an indie fan before I became a wrestler.
Right. So it's not like you were researching it or anything. Yeah, it was just sort of like, oh.
I was being told about it by friends who were not wrestlers. So my knowledge was very, very shallow. And then Drew actually messaged me, and he's like, hey, there is a Biff Busick training camp coming up. It's 3 months, 4 nights a week, 9 p.m. to midnight, and it's $500. And I had just gotten out of a breakup where I was going to move to Austin, Texas. And I was like, it's the best time to become a pro wrestler is when, and so it was $500, which was a lot for me because I was living in apartments. I was working at Whole Foods, so I was doing the meat department at Whole Foods opening 5:30 to 1. I was going home and taking a nap, and then I was going to training class 9 to midnight, and then going to sleep and waking up at 5:30 to do it again. And that's crazy. That was 3 months of that. In the middle of it, I broke my ribs, and then during training, and then I was like trying to work and trying to go to training, but like you couldn't. Every time you sneezed, it reset the break. So
it's awful. Yeah.
But then when that was done, trained a little bit more. You have a debut match after 3 months, which I do think is too soon. But I wrestled Oney for my very first match. I personally believe I was his star pupil. So
I would say so, because I mean, Buff Dad maybe is left.
Yeah, and so Buff Dad, he was ref dad for a while. He was training to be a ref because I don't think he thought that he could be a wrestler. He loved wrestling probably more than Nick, too buff. But of the people who had no training prior to that, I am the only one. It was to come out of that 3-month thing. It was myself, Ace Romero participated, and Xavier Bell participated.
Yep.
But Bell's not wrestling as much either. He's got a big boy job. He goes around every now and then though. He'll be on like Let's Wrestle or a Limitless show here and there.
He's good too.
He's great.
Very underrated.
He was the first person I know to not wear knee pads and just be totally fine. So,
yeah.
I don't know how people do it.
I tried it for a while. I hate it. I tried to do it stylistically, and then my knees didn't like the style.
Yeah,
No.
So I like
Let's try
knee
something
pads.
else.
I like not limping.
Yeah. I actually my Facebook memories today is me against Richard Holiday at XWA, which was the first time I went no knee pads because he was very like, he loved old school like Sinatra looking with the Yankees pinstripes on his gear.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've got a mullet and I want to look like Greg Valentine. Should I not wear knee pads? And he was like, yeah. And the only reason I said I want to look like Greg Valentine is one, because he's awesome, but two, because my body at the time currently like looked like Greg Valentine looks now. So I was like, it's the perfect fit for me.
Oh, so good.
But yeah, I had that match with Biff. He broke my teeth and made me go deaf in one ear during it.
Wow.
And my teeth are still broken to this day. My ear's fine. But it was he wanted me to Hogan up. He wanted me to Hulk out. And anybody wanted me to slap him.
Yeah.
And so I slapped him, and it wasn't hard enough for him.
Yeah.
Because it was probably the first time I'd slapped anybody in a ring, really. You don't practice slapping people in the face. It's
right.
Not, and he grabbed me. He wiped a fake tear from my eye, and he smacked me 3 times harder than I've ever... Like 3 times, he smacked me 3 times harder than I've ever been slapped in my life. And on the third one, he cut my ear, and my teeth clenched, and boom, broken molar. He pulls me out to the middle, and we get to the end of the match. I had to continue wrestling, but there is a clip of me after the pen I won, and you can see I'm just chewing my teeth. Like I'm like feeling around in my face for where it is. And then I had to go out and celebrate.
This was at the Chop Shop.
This was the original Chop Shop down in Pawtucket. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
Oneyville.
The Oneyville, sorry.
Yeah.
The Oneyville Chop Shop.
So I really don't feel bad when I see pictures of Biff after his matches with the black eye.
Yeah.
I think
Stiff
he
perk.
encourages it. He doesn't say hit me really hard, but it's kind of just a given.
It's that intensity.
Yeah, and not I don't think that he hazed us or broke us in really hard, but you did learn to want to lay things in and get things in late on you. It helps me sell to be struck harder. I like really physical matches now, even though I'm mainly a comedy wrestler. We just beat the crap out of each other.
But you don't. I mean, it's really hard to when there's like a whiff, and you're supposed to make it look like this guy punched you in the face, and you barely can feel the wind of it, let alone the actual contact.
Exactly. And I would prefer it get laid in. So sometimes if there is a complete whiff, I will no sell it. I will strike them, and then they'll have to strike me again because I'm not selling.
Don't make yourself
air.
look stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Biff's Oney's been one of those guys who's always just been snug. I mean, it's not a bad thing, and it happens. I mean, in your first match, ending up losing a tooth, that sucks.
He had some real deal training though, like legitimate.
He trained with
wrestlers,
Lance Storm, Funaki.
Yep.
I think there was another place in Texas he trained also, and then he trained at
Chaotic.
New England Pro Wrestling Academy.
And then, doing
Top
time at whatever that NXT place is.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
And now, that I haven't talked to him in some time, but that he's one of those guys who, guys like Robbie Brookside and those guys who have that British style are they're probably drawn to him like moth to a flame just because he's so representative of that style.
Well, my understanding was that he was actually doing some of the training there. some of the basics
I have heard
and,
that.
and teaching like form and footwork and stuff to the non-wrestling talent that they have, like the people who are just breaking in because they're football players.
Yeah, and then the sports model, like the swimsuit models and whatever they get in there. I mean, even way back when he was just a chaotic guy, and that's definitely not like a slight saying he's just a chaotic guy. We're talking about a guy who, before he got signed, was a world traveler with his training. But even then, he was technically just so sound. Like, even in his early matches, we brought him in when we were doing the NECW TV tapings, and we brought him in for a match with Ryan Bispel, and it was like the first time I'd really seen Biff work. Like, I'd seen him do like 6-minute matches. They went and they had like 15 to 18, and it was just, you could just tell. Yeah. This is a guy who, at the time had maybe been working a year and a half, and it was just, he was so sound, and like the guys that he would get in the ring with, he would help elevate them. I mean, he could work a good guy, but just his work was so sound that he would elevate them just by the way he worked with them. His footwork, the way he sold their stuff, he would just elevate them.
Yeah, and I am, because of that, I'm really proud of my basics and my footwork. I don't think that I have happy feet or dance around the ring too much. I'm really sure of my steps, and I think that it's because he would just yell. He wouldn't yell. He would just he would say a cuss word, but in a certain way that was just like, oh, you're doing bad.
Yeah.
He would. I'll say the radio. He would be like crappy. And you would know, like, oh, I have to do my stuff better. And it really helps you.
Like a dad.
But it's funny because you would think that, like, you're saying one thing you're really happy about is like your basics, your footwork and stuff like that. That's one of the things nowadays with a lot of schools, not the good schools, but a lot of the schools that are out there, that just goes by the wayside. And it's so important and like such a big piece of it. But there's so many places that are just like, oh, this guy can take a bump. All right, he's doing hurricane ranas. He's doing this. Oh, this kid's athletic. Oh, we're gonna have him do a dive and a backflip, but can't like clear the ring in 3 steps, or what I mean. It's like it's so for guys to like. I think it's cool to have somebody in here who's saying, I'm really proud of like my basics, like that I was really well taught in the basics. Which,
well, I'm not proud of much else that I can do. So in the ring, I think you go one way or the other. I'm not a natural athlete, but I am. I mean, I think I'm a pretty good wrestler. So
you're cool enough of an athlete and a storyteller.
That that is a strong part of it for me.
And that's the thing. There are plenty of people who might not be gifted as natural athletes, but they've been plenty entertaining in the ring because they've got charisma. They're entertaining. They're storytellers. So that's there's plenty of people who've been naturally gifted athletes who couldn't put it together.
Right.
Yeah. And so. All right, so you got wrestlers who are so your first match is with Oney Lorcan, with Biff Busick. That pretty good start to things. Who are some of your other favorite people to wrestle when you first started, like when your first year in the business?
Oh, okay. So after that stint, I lost my job at Whole Foods. Right. I had my match. I lost my job at Whole Foods, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go down south and train with my brother because my brother's in the Army. That doesn't make him super good at fitness, but he's amazingly in shape. And I went down there for 2 months, and I strictly just worked out with him, and I trained at a place down there that I don't like and wouldn't recommend, but it was ring time. And being so new, I did learn a few things the wrong way, I think, and I had to come back and relearn them. But I came back. I was in amazing shape, and I think that Cordero and Biff were like, well, he put in the effort, because before that, it was every time I took my shirt off, Biff would just go, Sully Banger, you need to hit the gym, brother. And then every time. And currently I do need to hit the gym again, but I was in amazing shape. My second match, I was still wearing a singlet because I was scared. I was scared of my body at the time. It was myself, Two Buff, and Xavier Bell against Mikey Webb, Scotty Slade, and Christian Casanova as the Thrillanova at the time.
Super random.
Yeah, it was a 6-man at like a Chop Shop house show kind of, like a Beyond taping sort
secret
of thing.
Show or whatever they call
it. The secret shows. It was, I think at that match it was like Stone and Dijak was one of them, or no, it was Biff and Dijak in one of the main events. But I had that match. Scotty Slade is, I don't think he wants to be, but he is the master of multi-man matches. He's the one who's like, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, we should do it like this. But it all makes sense, where I don't know how in-depth you guys get with back.
Go right ahead.
But he's very good at. He is a true ring general, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. He can obviously go one-on-one with anybody, probably for 3 hours if he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to multi-mans, he makes everybody look like the best wrestler that they can be in a multi-man, which are always really muddy.
Yeah, he's very underrated, I think,
agreed.
in
He's
terms
so
of
good,
New England guys. Yeah, for sure.
And that was at a time where Bell, Two Buff, and I had been wrestling for 5 months at the most. Training. I mean, we were training every day, but it wasn't once a week. 5 months. It was 4 days a week.
Yeah.
But you can't really give. There's only so much you can learn in that time period, and he made us look pretty good. I was wearing a black singlet with blue knee pads and blue laces in my black boots, and it did not look good. But then after that, there was another secret show, and I wrestled Ted for the first time. I met Ted.
Nice.
We had a really funny comedic promo war back and forth, and that was a really good match. Because of Ted, because at the time I still wasn't strong enough to
He's another guy that's super underrated.
And
absolutely.
So it seemed like once that happened, because that's sort of where I'd heard you hear the names of Biff's got a new class of guys coming through, but I think it was around the time when you started working with Teddy Goods that that's where like your name started kind of because Teddy was out there with the top rope stuff and the different shows that he was doing, but I think that's sort of where your name started coming up a lot more is when you started working with Ted. To me, at least, from an outside point of view, where I wasn't going to all the shows, that's where I started hearing about that you were going to be, this one of Biff's students is coming through, and he's working a program with Teddy.
Yeah, I think that I fell into a trap really early on, in that I was told that, and this is how every promoters would come in and they talk to you and they'd be like, "Who wants to see Mike Heimel wrestle?" Or he would say like, "Who wants to see Brandon Bell wrestle?" And you'd have to be no one, and he'd say, "Who wants to see Xavier Bell wrestle?" And that's the draw. But I think I took that question the wrong way because it was Antonucci that phrased the question,
Mm-hmm.
and what he was talking about was your draw power is what's going to make you big in wrestling, and if you're selling tickets like Hogan style. And when he said, "Who wants to see Mike Heimel wrestle?" and I was like, I can probably draw like 100 people.
Yeah.
But what he meant was fans don't come to see Mike Heimel, they come to see Sully Banger.
Right.
Or you want to make them come to see Sully Banger, and that's where your thing is. And so my very first match with Biff, I squeezed 80 of my best friends inside of that room. Because I'd been in the music scene, and it was very local, and it was walking distance from the neighborhood we lived in. I think people, not so much the back, because they enjoyed the crowd, but the diehards were very down on me at that point because they were like, "Who's this new jack who can just draw?" And then when I wrestled Ted, again, it was, I hyped it, I promoted the show, and I drew another 80. And it wasn't, I didn't have a big head about it. I was like, I just want people to see me do this really cool thing. And you have a support group because you surround yourself with genuine friends who want to see you succeed. And I think that's why my name got out there, because we were making the little secret shows just look like standing room only shows.
Yeah.
And I don't take credit for it, but I just did the thing where I lived a 2-minute walk from the chop shop. I can bring the entire neighborhood. And I think that initially helped my buzz, and people thought that I was really over, but it was just that I drew people who didn't know what wrestling was. So when they saw me wrestle, they thought a shoulder tackle was amazing.
Yeah, it's the crowds that you have now.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I did with Providence Wrestle Party. I was trying to create a spot where people who are not in on the wrestling business learn to love wrestling, because I feel like I'm digging myself a hole here. No, it's just I wanted to create a spot for the non-fan where the super hardcore fans can go to and have a good time, because they're seeing their local favorites truly thrive. And I think that comes with the more people there, the more energy you put into a match. You can go out and say you're going to wrestle in front of 20 people like it's 1,000, but when you have a packed room, you'll see people really succeed and become themselves.
And that's an opportunity. I mean, I'm kind of skipping ahead, but that's an opportunity that you've given to so many people with what you're doing now. Obviously, we'll touch on that a little bit later, but it's crazy because I remember meeting you for the first time at XWA, and you were running the concession stand. And I remember it was like intermission, and I walked over to the concession stand. I was really hungry, and I got a meatball sub, and you were like, "Oh no, just take it."
Did you duck the line?
I did duck the line. Back elbow meatball sub.
All right.
And we just had a 10-minute conversation. I was like, "Wow, I don't know that guy from a hole in the wall, and he was super nice. I literally went back to the locker room and found Biff, and I was like, dude, I don't know who that guy is at the concession stand, but your student with the glasses and whatever, like, he's really cool. Like, you did really good with him on a respect level and, like, whatever. So, like, when he's saying that he's got, like, all these, like, I know we are 80 of my closest friends, like, no, it's true. Like,
Yeah.
because people legitimately, like, genuinely like you because you're not a douche.
Yeah.
So, like, in the beginning stages of XWA, the TNTs, like, I mean, no disrespect, those crowds haven't been the same in terms of numbers since.
No.
So.
And you know, it's easy to say, oh, you know, I've got 80 close friends or whatever, but how many of those 80 close friends will show up to an event? I can't count events where I've had close to home where I can say 20 of my friends who live near there have shown up. So to be able to get, you know, that many people who are, you know, supporters of what you're doing to show up on one given night, that's huge. Yep. That's the kind of there are a lot of places that would have had you as their main event. Oh, he's our champ.
And that's the thing is I don't want to be main event I mean, obviously the goal would be to be main event status, but I wanted to come organically. And there was a part after I drew that where people were crapping on me for drawing well because they were like, you know, you didn't earn it kind of thing is I think that what they felt. So I was like, oh, maybe I should promote less. No. Like get the organic fan base behind me, and I had to make that decision in my own mind, and I went with just continue promoting to the best of my ability and still drawing and stuff. But it wasn't like I deserve this because I'm drawing. It was like, look, everybody can enjoy more eyes on them.
Yeah,
you know, and I wanted to help the business grow, and that's been when we can get to it with Providence Wrestle Party too. But the entire goal is to grow the wrestling business and the wrestling economy. It's not a selfish, genuinely not a selfish thing.
And when you have an entire locker room behind you, like supporting the cause, like that first year of Wrestle Party Live Prov was some of the most fun stuff I've done ever.
Yeah.
In like 17 years of being around wrestling, like
I think
that was so much fun. So when the locker room believes it, the people will believe it.
Absolutely.
And they definitely believed what we were doing at the Black Box.
Oh yeah, and they really still do, and it's the best.
Yeah.
It's just gotten it's actually, I mean, we can talk about that too, but it's phased out from being 80 of my closest friends to being 100 people I kind of know.
Yeah.
Through that, like they came there by chance, and I was like, so I had the fear of like, oh, eventually my friends are going to stop coming because they're going to be like, oh, I've seen that, or I've supported Sully, or I've supported the wrestling thing for a little bit, but I have something to do this Sunday night. And then it turned into people who came and they weren't wrestling fans, and they're like, whoa, this is awesome. And now they come every month because they like the show, which is good.
Yeah.
It stopped being I'm there for Sully, and it started being I genuinely enjoy this, and I want more, and I want to see more.
That's the goal.
Like if more people went into their wrestling, not like a wrestling, but their wrestling pursuits, like and they fought to try to get that many people to show up at every show they go to. It's the rule of like passing the word along. So you had 80 friends who would normally come to those shows, and then they'd bring a friend. And as your friends weren't making it, those friends who brought friends who are friends now you've cultivated this, you know, again, and it's a small venue, so 100 people. You put 100 people in the Black Box, and it's jam packed. But you know, but that's if everybody puts that effort in, you know, everybody likes wrestling in front of a big house and, you know, 100, 200, 300 people depending on the venue, 1,000 people. But if each of the guys does the grassroots work on their level to try to get everybody they know to shows, you know, help sell tickets, whatever that is, that's what the outcome can be. That you can cultivate these great regular crowds who may start off with some friends and family. But it's not a friends and family. You know, we say, oh, it's a friends and family show. It's not one of those. It ends up being a show with, you know, 100 diehard fans, 200, 300, 400, depending on what the venue's going to hold. So, you know, hopefully guys will think about that, not look down on the guy who goes out and gets 80 people to show up, especially not a guy who's getting 80 people to show up and then wants to be in the main event. You know, the guy who is just, hey, I just want wrestling to succeed. It's like an unselfish, let's get as many eyes on us as we can. They're probably going to get the loudest pop on the show because more people know who they are. But if you do your work and get yourself out there and you know how to work, you'll get them cheering for you too.
Exactly.
So let's start. You might as well go into live prov wrestling to start. So where was it that you decided? You kind of said that you had, you wanted to get something that was kind of for the non-wrestling fan, a way to expose them to it. So where did the brainchild of live prov wrestling come from? Where did it start? How did that connect to AS220 / The Black Box? How does that all begin?
So I think that it had to do with, we started in January, where we were 3 years in January, 2 years in January, 3 years. It was 2 years in January, so we're 2.5 years in right now. I just wanted to see what it was like to run a show, and my best friend Jacob is the head booking person for AS220, and AS220 is great. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, but it's a giant. It's the largest nonprofit arts company in Rhode Island, and they have a black box, which is typically an improv theater area for people to do. And Jacob had tried in the past to get beyond to have some shows there, but it never worked out. There was like space issues, and there are space issues currently to this day, but it would have been hard for Drew to run there, I think, smoothly with the demand that he has as far as tickets and talent. And it's definitely for a smaller thing, and so I scoped myself smaller, and I talked to all the promoters and been like, hey, I'm gonna run a show, and I think that typically booking a show is really held for, or traditionally held for people who've been in the business for a really long time. But I knew that I could at least try to do something and have it be semi-successful, or at least touch it out. When I set out, it was supposed to be a one-off. It was a one-off show, because I was making the flyers for the secret shows, and it was just like clip art, like it looked like the old Top Rope posters where it's like live professional wrestling, this date, $5, and then an old black and white picture, like looked like it had been Xeroxed 100 times of like a lady in a head scissors.
Yeah, that's
and it
right.
looks so cool.
I remember that poster. I still have it, I think.
Yeah, and I was like, this is awesome. So it's based, and I was going to get a live band to do the music. It was just like mixing all the things that I love, and a way to get my friends who are music fans to the door, because I am from the punk and the hardcore scene, and I was not raised in the wrestling scene. So it was like, I can get music fans in by telling them that a live band's going to be playing wrestlers' entrances, and then I can get wrestling fans in and maybe get them into some punk music or some sort of learning about different subcultures and just melding this stuff. And the show went off without a hitch. It was amazing. I think we did close to 90 or 100 the very first show. And I was like, cool, that was a cool one-off. And everybody loved it. They all said how fun it was. It was a really great atmosphere. We did standing room only, because you couldn't fit. If you put chairs in there, you'd probably have 20 people.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
So we kind of had to do standing room only. It was a low ceiling. We had to do a low boy that was maybe 16 inches off the ground. And it just went so well that we were like, maybe we should do this again. But it was still like maybe we'll do it again, and maybe it'll be in a couple months. And then we did it again, and it was just as successful and fun and fulfilling. Like it wasn't like a let's do this till it doesn't work. It was like whoa, I want to experience that again and recreate that environment and make it cleaner and like bring in all this talent that isn't really getting the spotlight on them, and have them, because I know the people that we use are amazing wrestlers, but it's whether they're not comfortable enough to thrive in other environments. But it's something to do with the black box and the environment, and like you can do whatever you want within reason atmosphere that makes you truly get great matches out of everybody every time. And even matches that sag, it's still got something to it that's memorable.
Yeah. It's just something empowering about telling a crowd to go F themselves on the microphone. Like, I had never gotten to experience something like that, so that was really fun, being able to look people in their eyes and tell them to go F themselves or whatever. Like, that was nice.
So here's a quick question. So was the having a punk band play the wrestlers to the ring, or hardcore band, whatever style they're playing, was that always in the plans, or was that part of, because AS220 has their whole, they purposely boycott anything that's like BMI or ASCAP? So is that so, because you're not, I mean, was it a very it ended up being a convenient way that you could work around like not having traditional wrestling music played. I mean, I actually thought when I thought it was really cool because it fits what you present. Awesome. But was that kind of the mindset, like we're not going to be able to set up a sound system and play the CDs these guys bring for their music?
Well, so part of it was creating the environment of it feeling like a punk show where people are beating each other up in spandex. But I think that I didn't do it to get around any copyright stuff because technically for a performance, you can use copywritten music under the fair use thing. Okay. And there are times where we've had the band cancel like incredibly last minute and had to do stuff, and we have been able to use copywritten music. I tried to avoid it, but even tomorrow we were not able to secure a band, and we are doing pre-recorded music, sadly. It's not what we like to do, but when it comes to like you've got like we just had our event on 420. That's less than 3 weeks to secure a band, and then they were unable to do it. I think they're moving or they got new jobs or something with the band that we've been using. I did it to create the environment and it worked. It also just happens that it's also original music and the wrestlers they're not getting songs written specifically for them, but they are assigned songs. And after a few months, you learn that you're coming out to this song and this is your track, and you kind of understand the groove and the way that you come out and the energy behind it. Like I think Rich Bass and Josh Briggs and Grassa at the time were coming out to this song called Firestorm by Earth Crisis, which is a vegan straight edge band out of California. You wouldn't know that because there was no music, but it was just like a really intense, scary breakdown. Yeah. And you got this 6'7" monster coming out and just screaming at people's faces that he's going to kill them. And then Rich Bass telling everybody to F off, and then the crowd saying F that guy for maybe 7 minutes at a time, so that our shows like your segments were extended by no fault of your own, other than you being a jerk and everybody hating you. Yeah. No, I wanted the music from the beginning, and it was never like we need to do this to get around something.
I thought it was really cool. Like I didn't know what the piece of that was. Like I just when I went in, it was sort of kind of I had an idea of what I thought I was going to see versus what I did. I thought it does feel, by the way the band's set up, it feels like you're at a Providence punk or hardcore show. The band's not up on a stage or anything. They're just much like if you go to see like Lightning Bolt, they're gonna be somewhere in the crowd playing. And there was people right with the band hanging out, drinking an Narragansett while they were playing. It definitely gives it a unique look and feel. So live prov wrestling, you're doing these shows. Where is it that it switches over to from live prov to Providence Wrestle Party? What was with the name change? What was behind that?
We probably did that 8 or 9. We tried to start doing it 8 or 9 months ago. We saw it as a way to broaden our reach, in that we were live prov wrestling, but people didn't know if it was live pro V because the V was in apostrophe or in parentheses. But it was because you see a flyer that says live pro wrestling, but we were in Providence, so we put live prov. But that really only makes it so that wrestling fans are the ones who read it and they're like, oh, cool. And maybe here and there, if you see a flyer on the street and you're not into wrestling, you'll see it and you'll be like, I want to check out pro wrestling. But the fact that it's Providence, so it's locational, wrestling, which is what it is, and then party, which is exactly what it is. So it opens it up to people who want to come party and there also is wrestling, or it's people who want to come watch wrestling, but there's also a party. So I think it's a better descriptor of what we are. And it was really hard to change that name on Facebook. They wanted us to submit a press release and documents, and I tried to do it and I failed. And then Ernie Bach Jr., our announcer, the real Ernie Bach Jr., did it, and he knows how to finagle that stuff because he works in the music industry and probably encounters red tape like that all the time. But he figured it out, and then I felt so dumb.
So if you're just tuning in, it is the Pier 6 Wrestling Roundtable, 101.1 FM WBRU, WFOOLP, WVVXLP Providence, streaming online worldwide at bsrlive.com. Broad Student Community Radio, serving the curious listener. In studio with us today is Sully Banger, professional wrestler, protege of Oney Lorcan, and the mind and creative force behind the Providence Wrestle Party, which will be tomorrow night at the Black Box. So we'll talk about the actual show tomorrow in a little bit. We're kind of talking right now about the origins of what was live prov wrestling and now Providence Wrestle Party. It's funny you brought up being a fan of Chikara. earlier on, and that was a lot of the tapes you watched because when I finally got to one of the shows, my sort of review for it was Chikara is wrestling for like sci-fi comic book nerds. And that's not a put down at all because I'm a sci-fi comic book nerd. But to me, your shows were wrestling aimed at the hipster punk rock hardcore crowd. Because that's when I went to the show, that was the entirety. There was a handful, maybe 5 to 10 people who I recognized as area wrestling fans. Everybody else looked more like they were from the Providence music club scene.
Yeah.
So and the way the angles were, the characters were presented, it was very much presented on a similar feel, but like it wasn't like a copied idea of what Chikara does at all. But at the same time, it was that same feel as the way the early Chikara characters were presented to the fans. It did feel very much like that. I'd gone to a lot of the early Chikara shows, and it definitely, they felt like kind of strange cousins, if you will. So talk a little bit about the different characters. I mean, obviously wrestlers, you have some guys who come in and they work completely different characters or gimmicks for you that they would in other places. Where does a lot of that originate? Where initially was there hesitation by guys to do different stuff? Let's talk about the creative process.
I think it's kind of most of the gimmicks that we use are my creation, or myself and Ernie Bach's creation. I just think it's funny, like you know, it's one of those, like in the 90s everybody had a job, right? Like it was like the dentist or the postman or the, you know, the job era of WWF, right? Where there was like the electricians or the plumbers, the garbage man.
He's a man.
Exactly. So
He's a man.
I wanted to take that, but I wanted to make it relevant and valid, because in those they were handed this thing and then not really given anything else, and if it didn't succeed, they were taken off TV or changed the gimmick or buried. Whereas here, if I have an idea for something, so say we wanted to do a pizza guy, right? It was like, what if a doorbell rang in the middle of the show and it came in and it was Bullet dressed as a pizza man and he had a real pizza. But it wasn't like a, hey, Bullet, you're a pizza man. It was like, hey, Bullet, here's the gear. Here's a red hat and a polo with a pizza on it, and here's a fresh pizza. Be what a pizza man would do. But also, like, you give a little more guidance. But it was, I think at first there is hesitation in anything. We have choose your own wrestling adventure. We have wrestle your own adventure matches where it's turn based. Like, you know, remember flip to page 93 if you want to go this way.
Yep.
We have those where it's a Triclops against. We've had Mike Montero dressed up as like an adventurer, Sean Leader dressed up as an adventurer. We just had Dick Lane as a wizard where he brought out confetti wands. But it's like they'll get to a thing and then they'll stop for like a breath, and then Ernie Bach will go over the thing being like, you know, you've succeeded in doing this. Like, you can either take the high road and go for a Hurricane Rana or the low road and go for a schoolboy, you know, and they'll choose, and then you'll be like, the audience has chosen B. So, but that, like, we dim the lights and we play like Skyrim music, I think, over the intercom. But it's stupid things like that where we're like, what if we did that? And if it didn't work, we would tweak it or change it and get rid of it. But like, that's one of the ones that really stuck. And the pizza one stuck so well, but we were like, next month, oh, we can't do a pizza guy again. Oh, what if it's a National Grid guy? So he lost his job as a pizza man because he got beat up and he get paid the $13. So he got a job as a pizza guy. I think it was the same. No, he was a FedEx guy, and then he was an electrician.
This is getting better, like better paying jobs every time.
Yeah,
he's learned a trade.
He's moving up. He's got the experience, and we act as references for him to get his future job.
That's nice to do. Ernie Bach Jr. on a resume looks really good.
Yeah,
especially if you don't specify. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, EBJ. Yeah. There you go. Beautiful.
But it was mostly. We want to have fun with it, but it's also like sometimes you can break wrestlers out of their shell if you're making, and we're not making them, but I'm like, hey, do you want to do this thing? And if they say yes, then I gather all the stuff for it. Or sometimes they gather the stuff for it. Like we had, because there's certain things that I think that our fans, it's not that they don't want to see, but it's that they won't react to. We've had like grappling, like shoot, like grappling matches, like very British style, like you're doing headlocks and takeovers and chain wrestling and all that stuff, and they don't love it. they think it's cool. They're like, whoa, you're pretty talented. That's cool. But they want the oohs and the ahs, but they also want to laugh and they want to be invested. And I'm not saying that they can get more invested in a pizza guy than they can me working a toe hold for 3 minutes, but they can. But so if we're having, say, Callan Thomas, probably one of the best wrestlers in New England, right?
Fact.
He just hit 17 years on 420. First match was NCW multi-man match. Did you know that? 17 years on 420.
I only know that because he was in here not too long ago.
Talking about it? I made him do a speech at the... I didn't make him. I shot a congratulations for 17 years.
In the ring?
After his match, yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't like it. But he loved it, but he didn't like it, you know? But we have him being Coach Kellen, and he's tagging with Channing Thomas. And they're both amazing wrestlers. And I think Channing Thomas will be on TV within the next 3 years.
Yep, I agree.
But I think that when you put them together as like Kellen being this old burnt out coach, like back in my day, in my college days, I was the running back for this, you know, and they just complement each other so well, and they're having these tag matches, but the dynamic, you just see the character, because they can both wrestle and they can both be characters, but when you give them a specific path where you're like, you're the coach and you have a daddy issue, and it just works out, and they really thrive. And then we put Delmy in there with them, and they had there was a 6-man against another team I'll talk about in a second. That's insane. But they just you even saw Delmy kind of break out of her shell a little bit. Right. And I'm not saying none of these wrestlers are unable to break out of their shell, but you just see this whole new level of all the great wrestling they can do mixed with this way over the top thing in a completely supportive crowd that I think just amplifies it to the next level.
And Kellen's always been one of those guys, super talented, but when he's having fun with what he's doing, he shifts into another gear.
He shines.
And especially if it's something a little different than if he's not being the Riot, he's doing something different. If he's enjoying himself, he's one of those guys who he shines. So it's cool that people are 17 years in the business are willing to I'll do something different. We'll see where it goes, and that it's one of the attractions now.
Yeah. And then we've also had Sean Leader and Tom Billington, who are the epidemic around New England. They wrestle XWA and RWA and some local places, but their gimmick is perfect for them. But here at Wrestle Party, we make them the Eurotrash Spacemen. I don't know if you've seen this one yet. Have you?
I haven't seen it in person.
So they come out to an edit that I made of Du Hast by Rammstein, and they're wearing silver leggings and singlets, and they do their hair all crazy, but they come out and they just scream into the microphone. And we do a talk-to-text translator for everything they say. But then most recently we attached them. I have people hit me up. You've promoted, so you know how often you'll get messages from people you don't know, or you don't have room for, or you don't have the budget for, but you want to try to use them. I got hit up by Zachary Pier Bellew, who is awesome, and we use him. What I did was he plays a French, very like Victorian French character. I believe he's French Canadian, and he might even be French Canadian as a character, but he's very dressed like roughly and powdered wig. I attached him to them where he's from Space France, and it's not like there is a lore behind it, but the lore is that whatever you say is law. So like he's from Space France and they're from Space Europe, and he comes out and he translates for them, but they're just screaming into the microphone and they keep breaking, but you can see that they're genuinely having the time of their lives. And they had a match against Callan, Delmy, and Channing, and it was so entertaining. That's something that you really see Sean and Tom shine too, because they're just screaming and they're really having fun. And that is the main goal of it, is when I'm making characters, it's not like I need a trash man. It's like it would be great if we dressed Theodore J. Liftington up as a Triclops and did turn-based wrestling, because that's exactly what this moment calls for.
And you don't know it until you do it. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but
yeah,
it works.
I'm trying to think of things we've had fail, but I think that the things we've had fail aren't the over-the-top character stuff. I think that it's just been like certain angles we try to do that. Just the point doesn't get across.
Right.
And whether it's because it needed to be multiple months and there was a influx of new eyes, or maybe if it wasn't, topical at the time or something like that. And I'm not really scared of that, the failure of that aspect, because it's like, we'll just try again. or we'll tweak it, or
It'll be something else.
Yeah, and they can always just like have a great wrestling match on top of it to kind of save for whatever failed in the moment. So.
And a major part of your shows for the last year, one of the major storylines was based around somebody we had in studio a couple months back, King Leon. He was the big bad guy, pretty much. If he was a video game, he'd be your big bad for a while.
Yeah.
With one of the big events in the last 3 or 4 months being him losing finally the match for the Providence Championship to Ashley Vox.
Yes.
So nowadays intergender matches are becoming far more a regular thing. Where was it along the lines that you decided, was it right from the get-go that you were like, yeah, no, we're just going to do the intergender thing, we'll have women wrestling guys? Like you brought up Delmy being in the 6-person tag match, and then ultimately having Ashley Vox as the company champion.
I think that it was never even a qualm of like, can we have intergender matches or should we have just like women matches or men's matches. It's actually probably a huge credit, I think, nationally to Beyond for putting a platform for intergender matches. And obviously I came into the business under Drew, or kind of under Drew, and it was really normalized, but also when I'm not creating the environment, but I'm trying to curate the environment that we have at Providence Wrestle Party. It's super inclusive, and we are very adamant about not using any sort of alienating language or even going as far as doing alienating matches or situations or stipulations, because we have a strict no homophobia, transphobia, sexism, racism policy. Anything under that category, I do a speech for everybody in the locker room, and then I do a speech for everybody at the show at the same time.
I'm glad you said it, because I was going to say that you gave this awesome speech every time, but I didn't remember how it was worded exactly.
I think
and that was
I name every ism because, and it's not because like, oh, I'm scared the fans will leave if we do something alienating. It's that I truly believe you shouldn't be a jerk, and you shouldn't do crappy stuff and make people feel alienated. You're not going to grow the business by closing it off to trans folks. Like if you're showing a woman like women can only have women's matches in a contest that is scripted, it's the same way that it's the same view that Joey Ryan has on it, but it's not like we got it from wrestling. I got it from the outside world and being a feminist and having these ideals and then bringing it in and being like, how can I show my friends this? Because I've brought friends to shows in different areas very early on, and I was like, hey, come watch me wrestle, and they're like, hell yeah, like we'll support you. And they come down, and then there's like a fake trans gimmick going on, and it's super alienating. People are booing it, but they're booing it because it's a trans person who's actually like a man dressed as a woman and not in it's a costume.
It's a character.
But they're doing it like a ha he has balls kind of thing, and
right.
It's really upsetting and offensive. And I brought people there, and they're like, I don't like wrestling. Why would I want to close off this thing that I love, but I also hate huge aspects of it sometimes? And why would I'm trying to create an atmosphere that makes people want to take the next step, and I'm also showing our locker room that you don't need that kind of heat or storyline or storytelling to get over or to get heat. So and it does kind of spark like wildfire in that we have people who are learning terminology and ideas, and then they're taking it to other locker rooms. I've seen guys who they don't work for me anymore because they've reached huge levels of success, not because of me, but they're really successful now. Go from using the hard F to describe a gay person to, in the locker room months after working on my show, like we were working closely, to calling people out for using that language in the back, not in the front. They're not doing it to show face. They're like, hey, that's actually a really hurtful term. And if you can get people to stop saying that because you also learned that it's not a cool thing to do and it makes people feel alienated, that's really a huge goal of what we're trying to do. And I'm thankful that it's getting through to the wrestlers, but it's also like, I don't even know if it crosses our audience's mind because they've never experienced a show where there's been transphobia.
Which is great.
They come to our show and I don't even know if they're like, it's so great because they don't use homophobic slurs. They're just like, they haven't, like, it doesn't even cross their mind that we don't use homophobic slurs.
It's not part of their culture outside of a wrestling event.
Yeah.
Whereas unfortunately, it's kind of the nasty history of wrestling is that's been, for fans, you're going to call somebody the F word. You're going to, make fun of their racial status, I can go back 2 generations and, a woman who was a very, very dear old woman who would go to wrestling shows and she was elderly and she would watch Killer Kowalski and she would, as he was wrestling somebody of color, say, beat that N-word. Lovely, lovely woman. Like, you would have loved her, but, that was what it was. And you think about, I can think about going to the Providence Civic Center in the late 80s, and Adrian Adonis was wrestling, and there were kids my age calling him the F word, And you think about that, it's what... And we're in a place in time, unfortunately, Rich and I were talking on the way in, where race relations and stuff like that, we should be way further ahead than we are. And I say race, but I mean just how we treat our common man.
People who are different than you.
Yeah, we all bleed, our hearts beat in our chests. And what I was with the intergender thing. At the show, I thought one of the things that was really where I was standing, there was a large number of women. I don't know what their background was, but they were super girl power, kick his ass,
Yeah.
And it was cool though that right off the bat, this is a safe space as far as the way it was sort of portrayed to the fans. If you've never been here before, this is what's tolerated, and this stuff right here, don't even think about doing it. But the fact that that's now becoming a cultural movement through the wrestlers who've come through your doors and gone to other places and now have learned, hey, this is not just a wrestling thing. This is like a humanity thing. That's like very legit change being made. And, you can joke around, oh, it's wrestling. But when things you do on your home turf on a positive light spread out into society, that's way more than just a wrestling thing.
I think that should be the goal, is to whether it's in wrestling or in life, is if you are creating negative experiences for other people or negative memories for other people, why are you doing anything at all? Just be a good person. And not because you should be a good person, just why do anything else? What the hell's the matter with you?
Yep. Zero effort to not be a dick.
Yeah.
So
it's again it unfortunately pro wrestling has sort of been a breeding ground for the opposite of that.
It has.
Up to to the near past. Hopefully places are discouraging it, but I know it still happens. That
there are fans at the Brockton VFW that have some very colorful language.
And the
they
thing
don't
is,
like me.
And the thing is that the unfortunate thing is I love the experience of fathers mothers bringing their kids to wrestling. It's like a shared experience. But when other kids are doing it and not being when you have the few kids who are there yelling whatever that's inappropriate, even if your kid's not doing it, I think that's when a parenting moment of, even if that person's parent's not doing something, you can't, tell the kid,
right.
But telling your kid, hey, that's not appropriate. That's, we don't talk about people like that. That's not. And it may even be if you're the confrontational type, which nowadays more people are, going to the parents saying, you're really going to let your kid say that stuff? Just because it's just, we're in a world right now where people saying hateful things are being characterized as they're still good people. When if you have your message is based in hate, you're not a good person. I'm sorry. You could have had the best upbringing ever, but if your morality and is based in hate for another person based on their orientation, their color, whatever, their beliefs, then you're not a good person.
Right.
It's unfortunate. So bringing that back to Providence Wrestle Party, I don't want to go stray from that, but that's really a positive thing. And there was actually, and forgive me for forgetting the name, there's actually a company that you presented a show with during Pride weekend. With a company that comes through that is also
a matter of pride.
Talk a little bit about that, just how that relationship came up, the name of the company, because it's spinning me. I'm not remembering it right now.
That's actually happening again on June 9th.
Awesome.
This month, or this year, as a part of PVD Fest, which is awesome.
Oh, it's part of PVD this year?
I think it's the end of Pride Week, beginning of PVD Fest, or the other way around.
It's the other way around, yeah. It's usually PVD, then Pride.
Yeah. There's a drag wrestler from New York named Rick Cataldo who had hit me up like over Instagram or something, just been like, hey, I would love to come out, blah 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 blah, and obviously I wanted to bring him in, and I did, but I pitched the idea. I was like, hey, Pride Week's coming up and PVD Fest is coming up, like maybe we can because he was running shows in New York and in Brooklyn. It's called A Matter of Pride, and it's very LGBTQ friendly and centered events. Like they've got all forms of wrestlers, and they also book straight allies too. And I thought that was really awesome because that's what we're trying to do. But I also don't identify as that, so it's not really my place to be making that the forefront of our promotion. We're just creating a space where it's cool and totally acceptable and celebrated. But so I messaged him and I was like, hey, like I might have an opportunity for you. I can try to get you a budget from the city so that you don't have to worry about drawing. I just bought my own ring. Like we can do all this stuff. And he was like, that's awesome. So I brought him in the month prior to kind of get a feel for the space, and he wrestled, and he was a huge hit. Everybody loved him. And then he's like, I can't wait for next month. He goes back to New York. He's like, hey, Vice is doing a documentary on the wrestling show on June 9th. Is that cool? I was like, yeah, totally. So that he came up, I believe it was like June 9th or June 7th of last year too. He came up and it was a free show. It was paid for by the city as part of PVD Fest. And it also started the Queer Arts Festival at AS220. So it was just this huge, like, it was this crossover. There was
Perfect
just an empty
timing,
space. Yeah. And he came with Vice like rented him a 15-passenger van so they could all do interviews and ride. I'm sure you've seen, it's on Broadly as the Vice sub-brand, but it's a huge YouTube and Facebook video.
Yeah, it's made its way around.
Yeah. But you can see my dumb hair in it. I had a mullet still at the time. So, it was the day we had got the ring in the mail. And it was like the ring came in the mail, and then I had to go rent a U-Haul and then get a bunch of 16-foot boards that then I had to buy a Sawzall to cut them to the right size.
Because they're not 16 feet.
Yeah, they're extra. And
Famous last
so
words.
I'm building the ring for the very first time, and like I'm sweating. I'd been there since like 5 a.m, and I was there the day before too, like making sure everything got right. And for the show to be successful, it was my first time building that specific ring, which actually is a really funny and weird way to be put together. The actual ring itself it's a low boy, but the tension on it's wacky, and like it took me a while to figure out how to get the tension on the ropes right. And I wanted to create like a safe experience for everybody, obviously, because you're putting people's lives at risk if you're doing it wrong. And I mean, there's some trashy rings out there on the indies, and this one's actually really nice, but it has taken some finagling to get really perfect. And that first show, regrettably, it was not perfect, but it was safe and nobody got hurt, and the show was insane. It was packed. You couldn't move in there, and it was just super celebratory and awesome. And I was just in the booth the whole time doing sound, but we were just having fun and joking, and we wanted, like, AS220 loved it, and the city loved it, and so we're doing it again on June 9th. I was just talking to Rick yesterday, actually. It's going to be June 9th at 4 p.m. It's going to be a matinee. So
that's awesome. Rick was actually a major part of the Women's Superstars Uncensored Women's Star, the WSU promotion that was in New York. So he's in his time he did a lot of intergender stuff before intergender was kind of a regularly acceptable thing. With the whole, at the time he was like the diva Rick Cataldo.
Yeah, the boy diva.
Yeah, he was he worked with a lot of really good, like some of the top women who ended up being part of like the women's revolution and stuff like that. So that's really, it's just another page in the book of how this wrestling at the Black Box has made things very acceptable, open arms. And I think that's kind of why your crowds are what they are, because I think that word gets around very quickly where you can be comfortable or uncomfortable. And all it takes is one regular at a bar who either just sits across and gives somebody a dirty look, or, just says the wrong thing, and word gets around very quickly that the place is really cool, but there was like 2 or 3 people who were total dicks. So I'm not going back. I think part of that, one of the guys we used to run events with, his name is Roy, is super involved in the Rocky Horror community, and he's pretty much the driving force behind that. One of his things was, as much as people might be wrestling fans, people want to go to places where they can be with other people who have similar interests, where they can kind of get, and no matter who you sit next to, you can, strike up a conversation. And so if people feel welcome at places and feel like part of something, then they tend to become more fans of it, or regular fans. And in wrestling, all it takes is like one or two people who turn off the crowd, and you can have a few fans kind of ruin a venue for that very reason. So
and there's actually been instances of that in the past, but there is a self-policing thing. Either people will boo them and get them out.
Literally took the words out of my mouth.
There was the one incident that comes to mind was I had some people be like, "Hey, there's some dude over there throwing the hard F, throwing the N-word around." And I was like, cool, point them out to me. Because so it's not that, like, you can create the atmosphere, but something's going to happen. No matter, like, it's just a matter of time. And it's how you react to that is what makes the huge difference. And what we did was I talked to the dude. I was like, hey, you got to head out. You're seeing some really busted stuff, and we need to, like, we can either go outside and talk about it, or just, like, you need to leave. You're not welcome here because you're making people feel alienated. Enough to where they said something. And then the dude continued, like trash-talking somebody. Like, he was, like, starting crap with somebody and kept saying the F word the N-word, and he's just this white dude, and it was him and his girlfriend, and if he wanted to learn or change, if he was like, hey, I'm sorry, I got carried away, I shouldn't have said that. Nope, not that. He's like, I paid money to get in here. It was him and his girlfriend. He's like, I paid you $20 because it was $10 a head. And I was like, all right. I pulled the money in my pocket. I was like, here's your money, get out.
Yep.
And he like still refused to leave, and I'm like shooing him out. Everybody's booing him. It was in the middle of a match, and it was Tony that snapped. It was Tony. Tony P was the ref, and he heard it in the middle of the match.
MJF.
Yeah,
right?
it was like this insane. Two guys are going to be on AEW, and they're like
two super
having
indie
this
guys,
awesome match. And Tony P just stops, and he's like, "Hey, this isn't about you. You need to shut the hell up. You're like saying bad stuff, and you need to cut it out." It was a lot more graphic than that. And Tony was really sorry, but I was really happy that it happened. It was really the catalyst for me being like, "Oh, it's that guy right there." Okay, and I get him outside. And he still keeps throwing on the hard F, and 6'7" Josh Briggs is out there with his shirt off, just hanging out, and the dude's like, he like wants to fight me, but I was just trying to get him to leave. I also would have fought him if I needed to, but I was also running a show, and then Briggs just gets in between us, gets in the dude's face. He has to sink down like 2 feet to get in the guy's face, and he's just like, get away, and then the dude starts walking off, and then JT and Xavier Bell come out, and they're like, what's going on? And Briggs and I were both like, that dude is saying the N-word. And they were both like, what? And JT was like, what's up? And Bell just chases him down the street. And he was running. It was, but then we got back inside, and I had to say something, because it was like, we kicked one fan out, but we need to let everybody know that, like, we're sorry it happened, and we will do our best to make sure that doesn't happen again. I can't guarantee that it's not going to happen,
right,
but it's how you react to it in the time is that really reassures and reaffirms people's position and feelings and who they are. Like, it's going to happen. People are going to feel upset, but it's the support that they get afterwards that makes them come back and feel affirmed in who they are.
So this Sunday night, tomorrow night, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, at the Black Box, Providence Wrestle Party. So if somebody's never seen it, or if somebody's a fan of the show, what are some of the matches that have been announced, or what are some of the things that they can expect to see that that have been announced or are not going to be surprises tomorrow night?
Everything's going to be a surprise, but I can announce.
That's a great answer.
I'll announce everything that I have on the top of my head. It is a benefit for Progreso Latino, which is a nonprofit based in Central Falls that helps immigrants with whether ESL classes, job placement, job training, daycare, education, any sort of that stuff. It's a really great nonprofit that we're partnering with for Cinco de Mayo, because I think you could go somewhere else and see sombreros and maracas and appropriation, but we're trying to we're giving them 100% of the door.
Beautiful.
And so that's really great. We're working with them. A few of them might come out, but it's going to be an awesome night of wrestling. It's free for Brown and RISD students with the ID, and the best part about that, I hope there's some Brown and RISD, I'm sure there are listening, tuned in. It's free for you. We take your student ID number, and then AS220 submits it to Brown and still gets paid. So you get into every AS220 and Black Box event for free, and the artist still gets compensated. So I think that you should continue.
Awesome. I didn't know that.
That's why students
amazing.
Are free. People at like Rick or CCRI will be like, why isn't it free for us? But it's like, because we get compensated. I can still pay my artists for their labor if you come in and get in for free.
Thank
It's
you,
just
Brown
a
and Risby.
total bonus.
That's amazing.
Very cool.
But some of the matches, we've got Perry Von Vicious versus Ashley Vox is going to be our main event. That'll be really fun. I think that Ashley's down at, I think she might be at Beyond.
She was at Impact last night.
She's going up and up and up.
Yeah.
We've got Mike Montero versus DL Hurst, which will probably be a great
That'd be
match.
really good, yeah.
I'm going to wrestle the Wild Man Congo.
Ooh.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. He's the only person in the world
Will you
I will
survive
let pile drive
the
me.
concrete jungle?
Probably not. We've got the Eurotrash Spaceman and Zachary Pierre-Berlou tagging against another tag team. I believe that it is... I'm a bad promoter. Big Bear, Bo Douglas, and Ike are tagging against the Spacemen. So
Ike
that's
the
just
Bite.
going to be insane.
If you haven't seen Ike, he's a tiny little guy, but he's like the smallest wild man there ever was.
He's so great.
Ike the Bite.
Throw him around like a wet fish. You just swing him like a baseball bat, and he just spews baby powder everywhere.
Oh god.
Yeah, and then there's some other great matches. We've got 7 awesome matches. We're starting at 7. I get to go to bed by 11:30, and it's awesome. So.
Nice. Yeah, it's not a late night. Typically, I know that the night I went, I got out just in time to the match had ended. They were celebrating Ashley Vox winning her shot at the title at the time, and I was able to beat feet over and catch last call at Frisky Fries.
There you
Yeah.
So no, this is definitely Providence Entertainment. It's a great time. Once again, if you're a Brown or RISD student ID, or faculty or whatever, you have your Brown or RISD ID, make sure you check it out because it is free for you. Again, 100% of the proceeds on this one are going to a great charity, especially when it's a Cinco de Mayo show. There's a ton of cultural appropriation that happens around this time, and I've been invited to play more than one gig for. Come and play this Cinco de Mayo gig, and you find out that it's a Mexican restaurant owned by guys who are businessmen who have not an ounce of Latino blood in their bodies. And they're looking for sombreros and big fake mustaches and play the Mexican jumping bean song or whatever. So no, it's an awesome event. It's going to be a great time. I can guarantee you that if you've never been to a wrestling show, it's going to be a fun time for you. It's a fun environment. It's a welcoming environment. If you have been to wrestling events and you have not been to one of the Providence Wrestle Party events, go with an open mind and you're going to have a blast. It's not going to be exactly what you expect from a wrestling event, and that's why it's awesome. Everybody can set up a ring and put on, in quotes, a wrestling show. Not everybody can put on a wrestling event, and that's something that Sully has been doing now for the better part of the last couple of years, and it's only getting better over there. So highly on our list of recommended stuff is Providence Wrestle Party tomorrow night, 7 o'clock start at the AS220 on the black box of AS220 on Empire Street. And I know you got to get rolling. We want to appreciate we appreciate you coming down and taking some time out of your busy weekend getting ready for the show. And maybe one of these days when you don't have to run out, we can have you back in and we can talk more. But Sully, thank you so much. Where can they find you online and your and information about your company online?
We don't have a website, but you can go to providencewrestleparty.com, and that'll bring you right to our Facebook.
And that's pretty much everybody has
and
Facebook,
providencewrestlingparty.com too, because they're the wrestling thing people mix up.
I know I've done it a couple times today.
So we, or you can just look us up on Facebook, or you can find Sully Banger on Facebook and like my page and all my pictures of my mullet.
Yes.
All right, that I've shaved. I have a shaved head now and a mustache. So, thank you so much.
Mullet
for
was
having me.
luxurious.
No, it's all right.
It was going.
Yeah.
You gotta say a mullet is luxurious. That's a good word for a mullet.
Absolutely.
It was my favorite thing, but I had 13 hairs left at the end of that.
Yeah. I hear it.
I had some Homer Simpson stuff going on. Thank you for having me. I had a
Thanks,
really good
buddy.
time.
Nice to see you. Glad we finally got you in here.
Yeah. You've been on like the list from like when we got rolling again. Like as one of the guys of I got to bring him in to talk about. So definitely we got to get one of the nights we got to get down and have like even I know you Rich you kind of can't be out in the crowd watching because they don't like you there.
No,
Just get
I've
beer
had my
cans thrown at
glasses
you.
ripped off my face and beer thrown at me.
But we'll have to have a Wrestle Party field trip for the show one of these nights and hang out and then we can come back and talk about all the yucks we had. So
Right on.
Alrighty, cool.
Thanks,
So,
Sully.
thanks again. We appreciate you coming down.
Thank you so much.
So we'll throw a song on while Sully's heading out. We've been playing some goofy wrestling stuff. Oh, maybe we won't play it. It sounds like we're back to the mystery music, Rich.
What the hell is this?
I don't know. This has got to be something on
My sweet potato pie.
My Sweet Potato Pie. I don't know what this is, but mystery music. Oh, I love it. This is you go to use the computer channel. We're gonna kill it. Is that where it is? This is great radio now.
Everyone's gone.
Oh yeah, no, they all left with Sully. He was leaving. There's like
He drew his 80 friends, and that was a wrap. Damn it.
Wow. Well, so much for that.
Later, buddy.
Let's see if we can get.
Nice to see you.
They want to hear the Thanksgiving song.
Do you want to jump to Roll Man?
This is
Make him really strong.
this is a Thanksgiving song. I hope you enjoy
It's
it.
true your staph infection's bad, but you're just a lad to fix what we've got wrong.
All right. Well, I was gonna try and play something for you, but we're getting Adam Sandler with the. I don't know where this is streaming from, but it's somewhere.
Still happening.
It's somewhere.
Turkey, course it's good.
This is actually kind of humorous that this is what's playing. Though.
Yeah, I don't even mind.
All right, it was Jen's play. I closed her playlist earlier. I don't know why it was still playing, but tremendous. So really cool that we finally got Sully in here. That was I mean, again, if we hadn't said it enough during the show, his those Providence Wrestle Party shows, it's a completely different flavor of pro wrestling, and it's awesome. And I'll tell you, I was really glad that he came in here and told us about how that whole RISD and Brown. I just thought they were being cool because it's local.
Yeah, right. They were affiliated. I thought it was whatever, but that's great. That's really cool that they still do that. That they do that. And I mean, Sully is seriously one of the most genuine humans I've ever met in my life. Like, everything that he was just saying is really what he believes in. And I think that's part of the reason why Wrestle Party is so successful, is because he truly believes in what he's putting out there. So if you can support that and you want to see some cool stuff, go down there and check that out tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good show. I'm unfortunately booked tomorrow, one of those music shows. It's funny, I didn't even get a chance to bring it up with him, but they ran a show as part of the Hope Street Stroll last year, and as part of it, there was one of the matches happening, had the Middlesex Express, and by chance, it was at the same time that the Extraordinary Rendition Band was playing, and we so the Middlesex Express are in the ring, who are awesome dudes, good guys and friends of mine, and all of a sudden, by chance, we're literally across the ring while they're trying to wrestle with a 30-piece street band playing music, and Bobby Rossi, who's listening right now, so props out to you, Bobby, was listening in the ring. He's like, he was refereeing. He looks, either that or he was ring announcing. He looks over and sees me, and it was like the biggest rib that, like, all of a sudden, hey, there's a 30-piece street band playing while you're trying to get the fans to boo and hiss you.
That encompasses wrestling.
Yeah,
especially
totally.
Wrestle Party too.
Yeah. So, and I'm pretty sure that was part of it. Was a Providence Wrestle Party show that they had put on over there. So yeah, and like I said, it was a completely. When I went to the event last year, it was one of the most like different events. It was. Again, they do that standing room only because if you put chairs in, you're not going to be able to fit 30 fans in there. There was close to 100 that night, and again, you can get an inexpensive tall boy and watch wrestling, and it's pretty different. The things that you hear people yelling at the wrestlers and the comments that they make it's different than the I'm way too cool wrestling fan. This is awesome. We are awesome. You still got it. All that stuff that you hear. This is wrestling. You don't hear any of those there. No. You will hear some goofy stuff yelled at the wrestlers, and it's a lot of fun. So
yeah, like F this guy. Never heard that chanted at me before. But I mean, and like he said too, like the performers thrive because if I'm out there cutting a promo, and every word that comes out of my mouth is booed heavily, I'm not gonna stop because that's the deal. Like that's the goal, and it was a good it's a good place to work on your craft and try new stuff and just see what sticks. Because that's really what
Right.
wrestling is just throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks.
So going into some of the news of the week, big story was that Brock Lesnar, when he lost the WWE title to Seth Rollins, it was pretty much generally assumed that he was going to then, they even made references that he was going to Las Vegas, that he was going to look and get himself angled into a match with Daniel Cormier for the UFC heavyweight title. Well, he has announced his retirement from MMA. Kind of a strange time for that because his contract would be coming up with WWE. So usually that whole I could go back to UFC is a good leverage point, unless now he's thinking with his contract coming up that All Elite Wrestling will now be a level of bargaining, that he could get big money from them.
That will never happen. I'm telling you right now. There's no way that would ever happen.
I'm just saying that might be like a leverage. I mean, whether or not he could easily say, hey, yeah, I've got a deal on the table from them for X amount of dollars. And
I meant I can't see them ever
actually offering him to go there. No, it doesn't. He
just
doesn't,
because of Cody's Cody's outlook on this. Brock just does not fit
Doesn't
that
seem to
mold.
fit that.
No, not at all. And did I read somewhere that Brock was forced into retirement because he failed a drug test?
No, I heard he was open. I heard that with the last round of testing, he was cleared that he could compete again.
Maybe I misread it.
Okay. So we're not sure on that. We'll look in and hopefully next week have a better clarification on that for him. Dean Ambrose, somebody who they made a big deal about leaving over the last couple months, that he was on his farewell tour. They did a lot of house show things with the Shield, getting back together and doing one last round of the Shield. He actually this weekend did appear at the Cauliflower Alley Club as Jon Moxley. That was his first legit appearance as Jon Moxley, no longer Dean Ambrose. He also produced a pretty cool looking video about him being, Mox coming back as, he's in jail and he gets this, and he wraps his arm with barbed wire and
escaping the asylum.
escapes prison, and a lot of thought that that's saying that he's breaking free of, the prison he was in for the last bunch of years. Rumor has it that a lot of fans thought maybe WWE produced that, and now this is a big swerve, and he's going to come back as Jon Moxley. They're not going to spend all this time and money in Dean Ambrose and Brandon Dean Ambrose to bring him back in a new character like this. What I think, he definitely went out and did this on, he probably has friends who helped him produce this. Maybe it was even the guys from All Elite Wrestling helping. The quality is super tight. But I think that one of the reasons why WWE let him go, they knew he wasn't happy. He let his contract go up. He'd stayed, he'd gone to the end of his contract. He gave them notice, I'm not going to re-sign. They could have sat him out, but he's been an attraction for him. The Shield was a big draw for them. I think they figured, his wife works for the company. She's in a big position with doing commentary. There's no heat on Renee Young at all. She's very much liked in the company. He's pretty liked in the company. I think they figure if we let things go the way they are, let him go. He's going to this happened. Guys get burnt out from the road. They want to go back to the indies and do what they did for a while. I think that they figured if he goes off on a good signal, no matter what he does while he's off, there's a good chance that he could come back in the future. And we broke the relationship on good terms.
Yep.
It only means that things will be on good terms.
Come back in a few years and he'll be a bigger star than he was before.
Yep.
We've seen that happen so many times over the history of wrestling, where guys will be in a top position in the WWE or even back in WCW, and they'll leave, do the indies, Japan, whatever, really get it, focus, it clicks, and now they go back to the WWE and they're Eddie Guerrero, Matt Hardy. The list goes on and on of guys who left, and the door was open for them to come back. So we'll see what happens with Dean Ambrose. I would imagine he probably made a pretty significant amount of money where he can just live comfortably for quite some time if he wanted to. And his indie appearance fee, from what I understand, is ridiculous.
Have you heard somewhat of a...
Yeah.
Give a ballpark. Over 10,000?
Yes.
Over 15,000?
That's what...
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, hey, and they're going to be places that pay it. For sure.
Well, here's the thing. When RVD the first time he left television, he was charging $20,000 to come in and wrestle. Yep. And he said, I don't need to do it. I have money. It's not about that. If someone out there is really I mean, maybe he didn't use the right terminology. He said, if someone out there is dumb enough to want to pay me that amount of money, then I'll gladly come in and do it. The business is a little bit different now. I think, there are guys on the indies who, Rey Mysterio before he went back, I know his fee was $10,000 to $12,000. So
depending on whether he's singles or tag,
and he was everywhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
and that was on this much smaller level. One of the things that I used to tell students and wrestlers that I worked with and helped, giving advice to, I used to say, you don't need to take every booking. I mean, when you're trying to get your name out there, yes, absolutely, but there are going to be people who run shows that you might not want to work. And I said, when they call you and ask you, then you quote them the price that, you don't think they're going to pay you. Now, don't be like, oh yeah, I need $1,000. No, if you're a guy who gets, $75 to $100, and there's a company that but they're calling you, well, I get $200. Mm-hmm. And you know what? If they say no problem, then you work the show because you're making twice your payday, and
right.
That used to be kind of our discourage the promoter you didn't want to work for, and on a few occasions they would say, all right, that's not a problem, and all right, well, you go there, and even if the show is crap and you got your money, you got paid well for it. So, Dean Ambrose is one of those guys I liked when he was with the Shield, and once they pulled that whole deal apart and he was doing the singles thing, I found him far less interesting, personally.
Yeah.
The guy is super talented, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. Maybe the Dean Ambrose thing for him didn't. Maybe there's stuff with Jon Moxley that I haven't seen or I didn't see because I wasn't so much keen on like that in the stuff he was doing indie-wise. Interested to see where he goes because I'd like to see him fresh because obviously if he's finding his passion again doing it, he'll have more fun and it'll be a better show, and then maybe there'll be something to it that's I'll find interesting because that's totally what it's all about, right? Making me interested.
That's the thing is I was never like, oh my god, I gotta watch Monday Night Raw because Dean Ambrose is the heavyweight champion.
No. When the Shield was a part of it was like when the Shield first started coming around, it was definitely like, oh yeah, these guys are kind of awesome. They come in and they destroy people, and then I thought it was very interesting.
Just another guy wrestling in jeans just didn't do it for me.
Yeah, and a wife beat, like a white short sleeve shirt. It was just kind of it was like all the guys he tagged with got Roman kept the Shield look, Seth Rollins got cool gear, and he just kind of didn't
put on a pair of jeans.
And then they sort of tried to do the Stone Cold Steve Austin with him for a while, making him kind of, they're like the psychopath and the lunatic fringe.
Yeah, nobody knows what the hell a lunatic fringe is.
It's just a song by Red Rider, So Jeff Hardy, he and Matt Hardy just defeated the Usos a couple weeks ago for the SmackDown Tag Titles. He's got a leg injury. He's going to be out 6 to 9 months. They relinquished the SmackDown Tag Titles. They portrayed his injury coming from Lars Sullivan's attack, but Jeff was breaking down, which is unfortunate because, man, Matt got himself in looked like Matt was retiring, gets himself in phenomenal shape, can come back, and now Jeff's hurt. It's a shame.
I was going to say, if it's not one, it's the other.
Another change when we were tuned in before, last show we were talking about how the War Raiders were the Viking Experience, Ivar and Eric. Well, they're now the Viking Raiders.
We're getting there,
but they're getting pushed hard. They're coming in, they're destroying people, and they had them relinquish the NXT tag titles at the taping this weekend. So they retire their NXT reign undefeated. They're actually playing up that they're like an undefeated team, 12-0 or whatever. They're pushing that as part of the characters. So that's pretty cool. Since our last show, it's been 2 weeks. We still have no word on what's going on with Sasha Banks with her WWE status. Hopefully now it's just continuing to take some time off and relieve some burnout.
Yeah, that's really one situation that I just hate to speculate because of our relationship. We know her. She's worked for us before, and she's just a sweetheart. So, just the crap that you read out there is just so stupid.
Yeah, it's awful.
I just can't imagine her laying down in a hotel lobby because they took the titles off of her, so she laid down in protest. Like, that's so stupid.
I fully believe that the way she was going, as far as the pace she was working, the schedule she was working, she's a young lady. Burnout, burnout from career happens to everybody. Job burnout, everybody feels that in a stressful job environment. Certainly, she, other than her injury, she's taken no time off. Mm-hmm. So when you're injured, you're off for 3 months, 4 months, but you are like, it's an aggressive physical therapy to prepare yourself for your return. You're not going to rest for 4 months because you're going to be so far behind, you're going to lose your spot. So people work injured, they get their surgeries that are needed to recover, they take the recovery and they come back and work. They don't get vacation. So, this is like, for a woman of her age, this is like the first time she's probably had a chance to breathe since she's made her debut on the main roster.
Yep.
She's
28 now, I think I read, 27, 28. So,
and she's married to a guy who is, he works in the costume department. He pretty much is the costume department, making the gear for everybody. So they're both very, very busy. They're, constantly working. God, if you think about when you work a full-time job, not a job that consumes your life like they do, and you get a week off, like what that does for you and how you look forward to it, like for a month before you know it's coming. They don't know they're going to get time off. So the fact that she's got some time off, hopefully it's just what she needs to recharge her batteries, because, damn, she's somebody who, when she's at the top of her game, there's not many better, and that's male or female. She's one of the best in the world, period. So, hopefully she finds the relaxation, the peace of mind she's looking for. But, wishing the best to her and her husband, because they're both awesome people.
For sure.
NXT TakeOver, the next one will be June 1st. Some of the matches have been announced, and this will spoil some NXT TV if you hear these matches named. But we're going to talk about this stuff. NXT champion Johnny Gargano will defend against Adam Cole. NXT North American champion Velveteen Dream defends against Tyler Breeze, a guy who's Fandango's out rehabbing an injury. Tyler Breeze back to NXT and now getting a little bit of a little steam behind him. He was very, very popular and very like a major attraction when he was there before. Kind of got lost in shuffle on the main roster or on Raw SmackDown. Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly faced the Street Profits, the Forgotten Sons, and Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch for the NXT Tag Team titles. I don't think there's any question on who this show is hoping comes out as the tag champs in that. It'd be awesome to see Hanson or Ivar relinquish the NXT, only to see a guy that he had a major hand in and a major feud with, and another guy who we know in Oney to win them. They've been in that position before, where they've had major marquee matches where they've come, just a second or two away from winning them. It'd be great to see him and Danny Burch win them.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is Danny Burch, we got to know him also over the past couple of years, because while in his early days in NXT, he was working without a contract.
Yeah, so he was doing NXT and he was doing indies.
Yeah, so he was all over the place, Chaotic, XWA, regularly, and he was one of the mates.
Yeah,
as he would say.
Super good dude.
Really
Everybody's
good
told
guy,
me how good he is. Yeah, just a nice guy and an amazing talent.
Yep. So that'd be awesome.
I know JT Dunn talked about just how awesome he was to work. It was like he's one of those guys, much like Oney, elevates everybody he gets in the ring with.
Yeah.
So WWE, despite having some heat on them before, they're going to head back to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia on June 7th. When they do, the former Universal Champions Goldberg and Brock Lesnar are both expected to appear. It was officially announced earlier this week. Word has it that there was some potential sniffing around by AEW for Goldberg, and WWE locked him into like one of these Legends deals to prevent that from happening. The event will also feature WWE superstars Roman Reigns, Undertaker, Kofi Kingston, Braun Strowman, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, and more, and will stream live on the WWE Network from the WWE press release. Got some upcoming events. We've talked Wednesday nights, Beyond Wrestling, Electric Haze in Worcester. From what I've seen of the footage, those nights are packing. They're getting great crowds there. I got to get there one of these nights. I just got to leave work and go there. It's just what I was going to do it this week because it was Rich Palladino's 50th birthday. Which happy 50th on the radio, Rich.
Richard.
But I was driving by and I was like, I'll probably stop by and say. And it was just the end of the day, and I'm driving, and it would mean going down a side street and another side street, and I just kept going, hit 146, and went home.
Yeah.
But I wanted to pop in and say hello, and I didn't get a chance. But I will make one of those shows one of these nights soon, and it was a great looking show. They're really setting up for Anthony Green, the retrosexual, to take on Stevie Richards, and he came in full Green World Order regalia, and Anthony Green just coming back from a great tour in Mexico that he chronicled. I love that he's putting pictures up of the stuff he was doing while he was there.
Great match last night with Ilya.
Was it?
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, on a pretty solid card, that was probably the match of the night.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Thursday is XWA at the Event Center on Bridal Street in West Warwick. June 8th is the next announced Top Rope promotion show at the Fall River PAL. It'll be the Spindle City Rumble, one of their big annual events. But going back a little bit, we were talking about tomorrow is the Providence Wrestle Party at the Black Box. Once again, Brown and RISD students, faculty, whatever. If you have a Brown or RISD ID, you get in for free. And obviously, we talked about that 100% of the proceeds are going to that charity, which is tremendous for a Cinco de Mayo show. When is the next Chaotic show? I know that they have one
2 weeks in Woburn.
In Woburn. That's who, when Rich was talking about the match of the night last night, he was speaking of. It was a Chaotic Wrestling event that he was at. May 10th, we'll talk a little bit more. We won't talk because this will be this Friday night coming up. Wow, how things fly.
Seriously.
New England All-Star Wrestling returns to Hingham, Mass. Fatal 4-way to name Brandon Locke's challenger for the vacant New England All-Star Wrestling Championship. We went over that card, but competing on the show, Masshole Mike McCarthy, Teddy Goods, Elia Makopoulos, Bull James making his return to New England, the Endgame Paul Jourdain, Rex Lawless, Slick Wagner Brown, Punjabi Lion Robo, and a lot more. So, a lot of wrestling coming up. May 26th, wrestling as of tomorrow 10 at Fett in Providence. Dan Moff defending the What Championship against Casey Navarro. And Teddy Hart returns to take on JT Dunn. If you've never seen JT and Teddy Hart in a ring together, wow. Did you see you probably saw the footage of crazy doomsday Canadian destroyer? Never seen something like that before.
His neck is a little banged up still from that.
Yeah?
Yeah. And he wrestled 30 minutes last night.
Intergender What Scramble, Sierra, Trigger the OG, and I had seen the list of the other people in that match, and it's I'm trying to think. But it's like a really good lineup. There's a couple of really tough ladies in that match, in addition to the guys they're going to be taking on. So, and Bear Country makes their official What debut. So,
that's a stacked card.
It is. It's going to be a great show. And again, the What Ballroom might as well be the What Ball. The Fett Ballroom is a great classic, becoming a very classic wrestling venue as far as just for places to present wrestling, and it's just a great place to see a show. If you haven't been there yet, it's a lot of fun. It really does suit the style of show that's being presented by What Wrestling. That's
what it was. Sierra, Trigger the OG, Maria Manic, Jimmy Lloyd, and Sonya Strong.
Yeah, so that's a good lineup.
Yeah, you got Bullet Joe versus Richard Holiday, the Rumble for tomorrow. AR Fox will be there, Danny Miles will be there, Brad Hollister, MSP versus Bear Country versus the Ugly Ducklings. The Ugly Ducklings were just involved in a post-match thing last night involving Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega, which ended with a locker room clearing brawl in the ring to promote AEW. So the Ducklings are coming off a
very high profile angle.
Deal.
Yeah, awesome.
Jessica Havoc is
she's a
take
beast.
On
not in a bad way.
The debuting Tasha Steelz, who
she's awesome.
At this point is probably the top female wrestler in New England, even though she's not from New England. She does spend most of her time wrestling up here, and I would say
awesome,
is the best right now. Her and Jessica Havoc is going to be fantastic.
Cool. So on our way out, the song that I was going to try to play while Sully was leaving, it is a parody. So it's just something weird that I found that it'll be interesting to play. Somebody was a fan of Frozen, and instead of "Do you want to build a snowman?" "Do you want a job to Roman?"
Oh no.
So with that said, it's the Pier 6 Roundtable. You're listening 101.1 FM, WBRU LP, WFOO LP, WVVX LP, Providence, streaming online, bsrlive.com, Brown Student and Community Radio, serving the curious listener. For the king of all zebras, the outlaw, the high class one, Rich Bass.
Bye.
I'm the Mad Dog. We'll see you next week.
Do you want to job to Roman? Make him look really strong. It's true your staph infection's bad, but you're just the lad to fix what we've got wrong. And though you've never been in the main event, and nobody knows quite why, do you want to job to Roman? Come on, please do it for Vince McMahon. Okay, bye.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, no, I'm not sorry. But look at you, you're just so full of yourself now. You are a sniveling little suck-up sellout full of suffering succotash, son!
Do you want to job to Roman before his flaws are all revealed? I know he's only had the one or two matches on pay-per-view since breaking from the Shield. Hang in there, Dean, his promos are quite goofy, quoting Looney Tunes and reciting nursery rhymes.
And now it's down to Roman Reigns. WWE fans, of course, not happy. Hey, Roman Reigns! Roman Reigns! Got him! Can he do it? Reigns eliminates both men! Reigns eliminates Big Show and Kane! Roman Reigns! Roman Reigns has won the Royal Rumble! Roman Reigns is headed to WrestleMania!
Here is your winner, Roman Reigns!
Daniel? Please, I know we fucked up. The Royal Rumble we regret. The fans think Roman isn't up to scratch. Let's make the title match a triple threat. We only have Brock Lesnar for one more month. Who are we going to push? Do you want to job to Roman